Goodwin. I'm driving today in a McLaren MP4 2B, which is Niki Lauda's last ever Grand Prix winning car from the 1985 season. This car was in a really cool era in Formula One where they were just getting into turbocharged engines. So McLaren went from a normally aspirated history into having a turbocharged engine built by Porsche, paid for by TAG, so it was their start of the TAG Turbo era. This was year 2 of that. In 1985, this car had actually been running in more or less the same form the year before as an MP4 2, but the B spec was actually running with less downforce, smaller wings, but a more developed engine. Yeah, this car was raced by Audrain Motorsport and Niki Lauda. And Niki won the Dutch Grand Prix in 1985, which is his last ever win.
Niki Lauda was both a brilliant driver and a super smart operator. We are celebrating 40 years since he won his 3rd World Championship. And to do that, we are watching Lauda's 1985 McLaren F1 car, the machine with which he took his final win in Formula One the year after that 3rd title, being driven today by Chris Goodwin as he takes to the track. And I'm happy to say that joining me once again in the commentary box is another F1 driver who knew him very well, John Watson. John, Niki had already won 2 titles at Ferrari when you both came together at the Brabham team run by Bernie Ecclestone in 1978. How was it for you in terms of the relationship with Niki Lauda? What was he like as a person, and how did the two of you get on?
Thanks, Ben. Well, first of all, as a person, we enjoyed one another's company, and I liked him a great deal. He was a friend all the way through until tragically he left us in 2019. But as an operator, well, he was probably the best operator in and out of a race car I think Formula One has seen over the last 50 years. And what he brought in 1978 to Brabham was first of all a 2nd World Championship, but he also brought his personal sponsorship to himself, but then he brought it to the team as well. So he walked into the front door, top loaded, and of course he did an outstanding job at Brabham. But some of the thoughts and reflections that he talked to me about later, he said, you know, maybe I made an error in judgment going to Brabham at that time. I know it's going to be offensive to some people, but actually, he had the perfect setup at Ferrari, limitless testing, undisputed #1 driver in the team, and that group of 3 people, Mauro Fugeri, Luca de Montezemolo, and of course Niki himself. He had the perfect setup, but he wanted to make a point to Commendatore Ferrari for other reasons, and he decided to go to Brabham.
I've got a long history with McLaren, so I was working there for 20 years as their test driver. I've driven this car under numerous ownerships, when McLaren owned it, when its previous owner owned it, and now this is it's been recently sold to a fantastic car enthusiast in America, a guy called Ken Griffin. Has got an amazing car collection, so it's a very, very precious object, and I will be driving it very, very carefully for its current owner. But it's a weapon, it's a real beast to drive. Turbocharged engine, delivering power all in one go. Not very sophisticated aero because it was the 80s. Manual gearbox, it's a real beast of a thing to drive, but great fun. And it's been excellently prepared, ready to race. It really is as good as new, so I'm hoping to enjoy it today.
Well, we're really enjoying the view and the sound on board the McLaren MP4 2B that Chris Goodwin is taking us around in. This was a crucial car, and of course powered by the Porsche designed turbo engine. It was raced by Alain Prost and Niki Lauda, their 2nd year together in 1985, after that huge fight together. A very similar car in 1984 when Lauda won by just half a point. I know you raced this car, but I also learned yesterday from you how much you love it. What were those John Barnard McLarens of the early mid-1980s like to drive? What was it like to be behind the wheel?
Well, I think what John Barnard did in the concept, then the design, was produce probably the best Formula One car of that generation. First of all, it was the first full carbon fibre chassis. Secondly, the way John designed a race car, every part fit. It was metronomic the way it fitted. You know, in the old days, there's a bit of cut and shut or whatever. No, not with John Barnard. Every part was designed on the drawing board, and when it was offered up to the car in the build process, it fitted as it was designed, and it fitted perfectly. But also the aerodynamics of the car, the concept, because carbon fibre chassis in these days, we'd gone away from ground effect, but still the cornering forces and loads were building. And the beauty of carbon fibre it gave and engineer a much better platform, a more stable, consistent platform for the increasing loads that were coming through the suspension into the chassis via the aerodynamics. And John Barnard was the pioneer of that, and of course giving the car to first me in 1981, then Niki joined in 82 and 3 and 4 and then 5, and of course Alain Prost joined in 84. So the dynamic was always moving forward, so the development of the car was going on at the same time as the teams were doing racing. The big difference was he didn't have the kind of testing facilities that he would have liked, which he had at Ferrari, and that was always, I think, an area he reflected back on.
Driving a car of a legend is always an honour, something you have to really appreciate. And when you get in the car, for me anyway, I watched this car race that year in and I remember it now, but by driving it, by sitting in it, by being around it is what brings the memories back. So it's a really fantastic thing to keep history and memories alive, and I'm sure it'll be the same for a lot of people here. I always was a McLaren fan back then in the 80s. I've got the same colour crash helmet as Niki, actually. No coincidence, and even through his era into it at the same time. So he switched me on to this race team. I always followed them when I was younger. As I said, I started racing myself in the late 80s with a crash helmet that colour, which was Niki's colours. And then I went on to work for the company for 20 years, so I guess he's influenced my life, you could say that. This car is really built for Formula One Grand Prix circuits, but fortunately in the 80s they were pretty rough and ready, so pretty bumpy. So I think it will go quite well around Goodwood, actually. It's going to be quick. It's very different. It's very different from a current era Formula One car, and you might say probably quite a lot more fun to drive. I've driven plenty of things around Goodwood. Some of these noisy cars I've driven here. I've raced here, but this is the first time I've driven something like this around here. So it's going to be an eye-opener. It's a beautiful sunny day here at Goodwood. I'm going to drive this amazing car. It's the fastest car here at Goodwood today. I haven't got the stress of competition. I'm just going to drive around on my own and enjoy myself, and what's not to enjoy. It's just going to be fantastic. Great fun and a real privilege to do it.